In the Anchor Tavern, at the end of the walking tour, Shane was half-heartedly looking through the Evening Standard, rereading a piece of his own about a play he'd seen under London Bridge Station. He liked the article. Could have been subbed better, but it was good. Sharp, witty, a pointed critique with a certain street savvy that he liked to think was his trademark. He'd hated the play, though, just as his account of this evening's walk would be equally hostile. Shane had already decided that. It was just a question of how hostile and how to phrase it. Part of his antagonism was due to being given the assignment in the first place. When the Standard suggested a series of reviews on London's tourist features, he'd hoped for something more interesting, particularly in the run-up to Christmas. A Christmas he would be spending alone and poor, and it really vexed him to watch the guide trouser more than £100 for his couple of hours' work. Worse still, he wasn't even paying for his own drinks now. Shane took out his notebook and started jotting down ideas for the review. Walking tours are a quaintly anachronistic way of passing the time, which is perhaps appropriate given that they deal largely with archaic facts, leading swag-bellied mobs of clueless tourists through certain sections of London. Was that a little harsh, he wondered. He took a swig from his pint. Best put in some facts about the tour itself. Most Londoners would probably already know the bare bones of the story, medley of Shakespeare, Chaucer, Pepys, and, for the salacious, prostitution. But I'd question why even the most bored adult tourist would want to know where precisely on Stony Street parts of Harry Potter were filmed. Put his pen down. Watched the pub begin to empty. Only a few stragglers from the party were left, including the chestnut-haired girl with the Osmond's teeth but a great body. Swallowing the last of his third pint of the evening, Shane shifted towards the door, gathering his clothes about him because it was freezing outside. It was also foggy. Proper pea super swirled along the banks of the Thames, virtually obscuring the hulking railway bridge opposite the pub. Over the river, the north bank was reduced to a series of dim illuminations that gave no clue as to where the water actually stopped. On the other side of the street, the new restaurants and the railway arches beckoned as Shane stole away from the riverfront. He didn't see the girl slip out the fog towards him. "Hello, dearie. Want some company?" She was heavily wrapped up in what could have been a shawl, but was just as likely a blanket. Shane decided it was a shawl. Blanket wearers usually proffered copies of The Big Issue, not company. The girl was very pale and short, with dark hair hanging down rather lankly. She gave off a faint smell of lavender. The whole scene felt very strange. This sort of thing was not uncommon around Brick Lane, but you didn't expect it on Bankside. Not anymore, anyway. 300 years ago, this had been London's red light area, and that's where Maiden Lane, where Shane was now standing, had got its name from. As well as working girls, had been gambling, bear-baiting and theatricals to lure people south over the water. Bankside's resurrection as London's leisure district since the 1990s had been based on art and theatre, so it was perhaps surprising to see a return of the baggage trade. The girl interrupted his thoughts. "Come on, I'm perishing cold. You'll be my last of the night. No one about in this fog." "What, here? It's a bit public, isn't it?" Shane glanced about him and realised that, actually, there's very little chance of anybody seeing anything in the current murk. She smiled. "Oh no, I've got a safe spot. No one will see us, just up here." She led him somewhere at Park Street, past the turn off to Borough Market, and then across the main road under the railway bridge. "Been to an entertainment tonight, have you, dear?" the girl asked. Shane hadn't been expecting small talk, but managed to laugh and said, "Well, that's one way of describing it. A load of old stories, really." "Not one of Mr. Shakespeare's, then? I like the romances myself." Once over Southwark Street, she pulled him gently but insistently through a gap in some hoardings. On the other side, Shane could see nothing, but he sensed he might be in a car park. Clearly not a green space. He could feel concrete beneath his feet. The girl led him to the left until they came to a rough lean-to that looked as if builders had once taken their tea breaks in it. "In here? Don't be shy. No one can see us." "Oh, it's nice, ain't it?" A hand ran up his jeans. "But money first, eh?" He handed over a 20 and tried to relax, but his heart was pounding from the rapidity of it all and a sudden fear about the location. This could easily turn out to be a mugging. The girl looked slight, but she could have confederates. Her hands began to press into his trousers, and he forgot about this for a few moments. "Been drinking, have you, dearie?" she asked. Not much happened for him except a soft spasm that told him the game was over. Feeling bewildered, though lighter, he bundled himself through the fence, muttering whatever came into his head. He even asked if he could see her again. "Oh, I'm always around here, dearie, but if you need a reminder, take this." He stuffed a small ribbon on which was written in felt tip the name Alice Street and what looked like a weird mobile phone number, 1678 0806 1703. He put it into his pocket and walked along Red Cross Way. The gate led into the yard he'd just left, and he noticed the entrance was covered with ribbons like the one he'd been given. Above it, a sign proclaimed it as the Crossbones Graveyard, where London's outcast dead were buried. He looked closely at one of the ribbons, which had Jane Strumpet and the numbers 0506 1662 01 05 1679 written on it. Only 17 when she died, he mused, before realising with horror that his own doxy had only made it to her mid-20s.